Hi, my name is Malika, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. I am a wonderful candidate for this role as I am a genuine person, and I think that most people just want to sit down with a real person and have a conversation. And that person just happens to be a family therapy expert. But it's why should clients have to navigate me before they can really get into whatever work they have? So I think that it's important to kind of show up fully as yourself, your authentic self, and being comfortable with who you are as a person, because it actually gives other people the opportunity to do the same. We can't really work through issues if we can't be ourselves, if we can't actually be honest about what those issues are. So as far as my experience goes, I have experience in child development and substance abuse treatment, which of course you definitely see how that's a family issue. For sure. I have experience working with couples, creating premarital foundation activities and various things that the couples can build upon. I'm currently a doctoral student working remotely, distance learning, focusing on it's the Doctor of Marriage and Family Therapy program. And I'm in the dissertation phase, and I'm working on creating more resources for the polyamorous community. So in addition to doing more traditional family therapy or individual therapy, I also think that we need more resources for underserved communities as well. I believe that I would be great for this position because I'm passionate about being there for people. I'm passionate about self-actualization and truly fulfilling all of your potential. And so much of our issues are family issues passed down through the various generations. People don't talk about if you had people using drugs in your family or alcohol. People don't talk about that. So then you experience it and you think, I'm the only person that this has happened to, when it's generational patterns of dysfunction. So acknowledging that we're all gonna have some issues, some family issues, and if we don't just admit that, it's hard for us to kind of move from there. Many of us kind of want to believe that we're perfect and that there's nothing to work on, and our families were great, or if they weren't, I wasn't affected by that. And then the reality is we are all affected by our family stuff. Again, trauma is passed down through DNA. So if you don't work on it during your generation, then your children have the trauma of what you didn't work through and what the previous generations didn't work through. So it's so important to really do the work and to just be open. I think as it pertains to parenting, from an individual standpoint, when you acknowledge my family had some stuff that we can work on, and I'm going to actively work on it for my children and their children, that's kind of how you break those patterns. If you don't acknowledge it and begin to heal from it, it's going to affect each generation. And beyond that, it's going to affect all of the other relationships that you'll have. So intimate relationships, friendships, you'll begin to see very similar themes. So an example of my therapeutic approach or modality, I'm big on cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm big on how your thoughts affect your feelings and how your feelings affect your behaviors. Big on that. I'm big on generational patterns. Again, so family systems. What role are you playing in your family, and how does that role extend to, again, all the other relationships in your life? So I would say in addition to CBT, I'm big on solution-focused therapy. Solution-focused brief therapy, to be exact. Focusing more on what you want as opposed to what you don't want. So many times therapy is from a problem focus. So not that we can't talk about what the issues are, of course we can, but what do we do from there? Do we stay in that? Do we kind of live in that place? Or do we say, you know what, this is what I'm actually doing well. How can I do more of this? How can I do more of this? How can I focus on what we want and not what we don't want? So if we want to have healthier communication patterns, we're going to focus on that as opposed to focusing on the fact that all we do is argue. You know, so we want to be intentional about the words that we're using and how we're showing up. So an example of a family that I worked with. So there was this one family where it was a husband, it was a wife, there were 3 children. 2 of the children were over the age of 18. One child was turning 18 shortly after working with the family. The father had cheated. It came out. The children, the adult children, actually played a part in figuring out what was going on, where he was going, who he was spending time with. And they kind of brought this information to the mom. Dad decided that he still wanted to kind of live in the house, but as a roommate. So not as a partner anymore. So he wanted to be able to change the dynamics of the structure of the family. So you really had 2 different sides here. You had the father, and then you had the mother, and the adult children, and the one that was going to be 18. So it was as if the children and the mom were all on the same side. Of course, they had feelings about the infidelity. However, it indicated that there weren't many boundaries in those emotional relationships. The family was enmeshed. So the mother would kind of project her issues onto the family. She would kind of guilt trip the adult children. She would so all the things that the children had to do were catered around the mother's emotions. Okay, so the family was really enmeshed. There were no boundaries. You couldn't say, hey, I have a problem with this. Are we able to talk about this without it being, oh, I must have been the worst mother in the world if you have things to say about this. And, so a big emotional responses when we should be able to just have these conversations. So again, it makes you wonder, well, what was the mother's family dynamics growing up? And of course, we found out that it was very similar relationships where she had to be responsible for her mother's emotions. The mother would have big outbursts, and you have to go run and make sure she's okay. You have to maybe cancel plans because now you have to take care of her. So the oldest child in this scenario was parentified. She was kind of raised as the third adult in the household, responsibilities with her younger sisters, various sacrifices that she had to make for school. So it was enmeshed. So it was really important to, for one, establish who was going to make the environment most safe. And what I was hearing was that the family wasn't quite on board with dad still living there as a roommate. So ultimately, dad did move out of the house to kind of give space and to kind of figure it out. So they were legally separated. So we spent a lot of time on creating those emotional boundaries. It's one thing for the father to cheat on the wife, but the family, the girls, felt as though the infidelity was as equally as bad for them as well. So I really wanted to, kind of take them from the side of the mom and put them in the middle. This is your mom, this is your dad, this is their marriage. These are things that they're working on. And getting the girls to have some boundaries around their own emotions and creating a healthy space to talk about how they really felt without it being something that their mother would then take personally. What's crucial for family therapy is for people to be open to individual therapy. Mom needed her own therapy. Dad needed his own therapy. Each of the children needed their own therapy. It's important for everybody to have that safe space. So I think that through time, once they begin to develop boundaries, once they begin to develop a healthier self-esteem, including mom, they made different choices and they interacted differently with each other. So we were able to establish those healthy boundaries so that the children didn't necessarily have to side with mom and be against dad, but it was more of a, he's still, okay, so that's our father. Whatever they're working out is going to be on them. What are we going to do about that relationship that we have, and also healing the one that they had with their mother? So it's just important to, with family therapy, it's really important to see how everything is systemic. One thing is going to impact this other thing over here, and it's so many moving parts, so it's important to look at all the contributing factors when it comes to family therapy. So I'm looking forward to having an opportunity to take this on a larger platform, because I truly do believe that we can heal on a global platform. So many issues that one family has, another family is dealing with the same thing. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm excited to show up as a marriage and family therapist, as a licensed therapist, as someone who's excited and passionate about assisting families. So thank you so much for your consideration.